What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering, and oh no! Week 2 ratings for Batwoman and Supergirl are tanking, down as much as 30 to 40%. Who could have seen this coming? Who? I mean, I don't know. I mean, somebody out there, probably one of you, my very smart and beautiful viewers, one of you probably saw this coming, but it wasn't me. I thought the show was going to be a smash success because the suit itself would have been perfection once made for a woman. That's right. Both CW's Batwoman and Supergirl have seen their ratings and viewership fall big time, with each series' new second episode having aired past Sunday. Now, I fully expect when you have a new show premiering well, Supergirl's not brand new, but Batwoman was, you're probably pouring in the maximum marketing dollars up front to have a big premiere. It seems unlikely in most cases that you would have a bigger audience in episode 2 than episode 1 in a brand new show, except for maybe something like Game of Thrones or Walking Dead, where they're like water cooler TV shows and people just really tune in between episode 1 and episode 2 to get caught up, and then they really jump on the train a little bit later. I think that's a possibility. Now, the CW last weekend, with both the duo of Supergirl and Batwoman, as far as I could tell by the ratings, took dead last. Regarding Batwoman, following its season premiere having the lowest numbers of any, or lowest number of views of any DC shows on the CW. Let me read that again. Regarding Batwoman, following its season premiere having the lowest number of viewers of any of the DC shows on the CW. Why do you think that could be? Why? If only we knew. If only we knew. I mean, I'm not an expert, but it might have something to do with alienating people in the middle of the road in the fandom with your marketing. So much of this, a lot of these TV shows, they get they shoot themselves in the foot before they ever launch with, very targeted marketing, to be totally honest with you. And not just targeted, which would be totally fine, but exclusionary. And not just the ads themselves, but all of the writers around these shows, all of the pundits on them are exclusionary as well. We can see the narrative, of course, this coming out after the first episode. Batwoman is oh my goodness, my dog farted and it is rancid. Must be all the talk about Batwoman. You stink, Indy. Batwoman is the latest victim, I can taste it, of toxic fan culture. And here's what needs to change. So toxic fan culture, I don't think that's why people didn't tune in for week 2. Quote, another show with so much potential ruined by wokeness. Couldn't agree more. Like her fellow Arrowverse heroes, Batwoman will face plenty of hardships in the coming weeks as the first season of her show unfolds. After all, that's pretty much in the job description, especially when you've got to fight crime in Gotham. Unfortunately, we're only one episode in to Kate Kane's first solo venture on screen, and it seems like the odds are already stacked against her, at least if the negative scores online are anything to go by. After the pilot episode dropped last week, reviews were combined on the aggregate site Rotten Tomatoes to give Batwoman's a fresh rating of 72%. The critical consensus was that Kate needed more time to find herself, but the first episode was, quote, a step in the right direction for representation and superhero shows alike. Again, representation does not put butts in seats. Never has, never will. This is a fake motivating factor for people. It's just never been that way. Good cinema puts butts in seats. Good music sells tickets to concerts, and good television gets those DVRs running. After the pilot episode dropped last week, unfortunately, the user ratings tell a very different story. In what's sadly quite unsurprising news, the pilot episode of Batwoman scored a measly 10% with audiences, many of whom seem to have deliberately review brigaded the show in an attempt to drag the score down. I guess, of course, no evidence provided of that, and it's just like, oh, well, if people say something negative about the show, they must be a troll. Of course, some of the negative reviews are valid. After all, taste is subjective, and Batwoman isn't mind-blowing show straight out of the gate. You're allowed to dislike it, but when a program scores dramatically worse than huge misfires like Netflix's The Island, despite their critical evaluation being high, you know something's up. In fact, the audience tend to be kinder to shows than the critics who are paid to review them. Absolutely incorrect. Critics review movies on factors that fans don't care about. That's why statistically we see huge gaps. We can see this already with Gemini Man, Will Smith's film. Critics hated it, fans loved it. Rambo, critics hated it, fans loved it. The critics in particular on a site like Rotten Tomato have very different goals. They're not actually reviewing if a show is good or not. They're reviewing if it checks the right boxes, which is why you see a show like Batwoman get a 72%. And surely the show isn't deserving of something as low as 10%. But obviously, based on the reviews and my own viewing of it, I think a fair score for the show would be in the low 40s. Among the negative reviews, after Ruby Rose gave an interview to Glamour that riled the trolls, a lot of responses specifically called Batwoman out for pushing feminism and other things to front. Another show with so much potential ruined by wokeness. So, isn't that opinion valid? I mean, maybe this person is a fan of the Arrowverse. There's always this misrepresentation, a false equivalency, that if you don't like fake wokeness, that you have some sort of problem with women in starring roles. And there are just so many examples that disprove this. You know, the huge success of Wonder Woman and all the excitement for the upcoming Wonder Woman 1984. Obviously, I don't even need to go down. You know, my viewers, you know. You could tell there's a narrative being pushed rather than a decent story being told. Again, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that being a legitimate critique of the show? Sadly, it doesn't take the world's greatest detective to see why Ruby Rose's character is being targeted like this. Well, Arrowverse as a whole has always celebrated diversity and LGBTQ plus themes were introduced into this shows gradually, whereas Batwoman's orientation is integral to her story from the start. So the implication here is, of course, that if you don't like it, then you must have some sort of problem with her orientation, which is, of course, ridiculous. Might it be true of a few outdated, Bible-thumping people? Maybe. But I don't think those are the type of people that are logging onto Rotten Tomatoes and leave reviews. The people that unfairly, I believe, give negative reviews, unfairly in your opinion, are responding to negative marketing, exclusionary marketing. Lines from the show that say, Batwoman's suit will be perfect when it fits a woman. There's all sorts of lines like this. Why would you want to alienate 50% of your viewership? It's totally short-sighted and idiotic to think that men wouldn't have liked Batwoman, and to exclude them up front or to blame them when the show fails only doubles down on an exclusionary tactic. And we see that in week 2 with the ratings. Batwoman saw a drop of nearly 20% for episode 2, with only 1.46 million viewers tuning in. Likewise, its rating dropped to a 0.3 from a previous 0.5. By comparison, 1.8 million viewers tuned in for the premiere episode. So 400,000 people less tuned in for episode 2. Supergirl tanks as well. The bad news continues, as Supergirl also saw its ratings and viewership take a nosedive, and the following series was Batwoman on Sunday. So Batwoman was so bad, potentially. Batwoman was so bad, people just turned the channel off and didn't watch Supergirl either. Supergirl saw less than 1 million people tune in, with only 0.97 million viewers, a series low, and 0.3 rating. A series low. Yikes. The season 5 premiere episode from a couple weeks ago saw a 0.4 rating with 1.3 million tuning in, a decrease of 25% in terms of viewers. Fans are staying away from the CW. News of the poor viewership and ratings doesn't come as a surprise, as both Batwoman and Supergirl alienate their biggest fan base, fans of the original characters. Both shows have gone out of their way to make it clear they don't want the fans of the original characters who watch the show. Supergirl has seen reference not needing Superman in addition to an awful new costume and ugly look. That's their opinion, not mine. And promotions for Batwoman have made it clear that Batman and males are in the wrong, with star Ruby Rose going as far as to say the show isn't for old white dudes. So clearly they listened, right? I mean, if you said the show isn't for old white dudes and the ratings dropped, clearly some old white dudes were interested in watching your show. Maybe there was some morbid curiosity for some people and the show just didn't do it for them. But this isn't a great sign. This isn't a great sign for a show that already is behind the 8 ball. Ruby Rose and the CW's Batwoman tanks in ratings viewership with episode 2. TV Line reports the second episode had a 0.3 rating and only 1.4 million viewers. The first episode had a 0.47 rating in the 18 to 49 demo with 1.86 million viewers. An encore aired Monday last week and saw the show bring in 1.1 total. Without factoring in the encore audience, the show had a loss of 36% in its rating and over 22% in total viewers. If you factor in the encore, assume that new viewers were a total viewer loss over 50%. The show's audience score on Rotten Tomatoes continued to be in the dumpster with a 12% rating from 5,000 users, and the average rating is a 1.2 out of 5. However, the critics' Tomatoes score still stays at 69. So, again, it proves that people don't care about what critics say about the shows. They're not interested in them. Again, I think the show is probably deserving of a low 40s. It didn't do anything to entice me at all. The love interests, you could say in this particular one, is less interesting than others for some people. But for me in superhero shows, I've had zero. I never have any interest in the love interest. I have an interest in Batman fighting crime. I don't have an interest in his love life at all. Same with Superman, same with Thor, same with the Incredible Hulk. It's all the same thing. But when you have some of the lowest ratings, again, regarding Batwoman, it was the lowest. You can't say you didn't see this coming, but the new series in the CW, Batwoman, tanked in ratings for its premiere, as well as in Rotten Tomatoes. Similar to Captain Marvel, quote, trolls are being blamed for the Batwoman low Rotten Tomatoes score. It also remains to be seen that Rotten Tomatoes resets the score similar to with what they did to Captain Marvel. I'm sure they will. It's interesting. You can't blame trolls for low ratings. For comparison, Legends of Tomorrow debuted with 3.21 million viewers. The Flash, 6.83 million. Arrow, 4.14 million. The series' first season of Supergirl aired on CBS to more than 12 million viewers. When it came to the CW, season 2, 3 million viewers. Constantine, which already aired on one season on NBC, already has more viewers for its premiere, 4.28 million. The latest season of Supergirl also followed Batwoman and only did a 0.4 rating with 1.3 million viewers turning in. Batwoman marketed wrong regarding Batwoman performance so poorly, which is a surprise for Batman-related character. The CW and DC promoted it as being anti-Batman and anti-male, obviously alienating and upsetting a huge potential audience. Of course, Ruby Rose said the show is not for old white dudes, which certainly didn't help things. I think painting Batman in a negative light was obviously a huge mistake, and the angles they took with marketing, who could have seen this coming? I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.